Remember when mid-range GPUs used to be cool? Well, with recent launches from both AMD and Nvidia, it looks like those days are behind us. But to be fair though, I think AMD is copying a bit too much hate for their launch of the RX 7600. More on that in a bit. But in this video, there is a bit of an Easter egg, so if you see that, comment it down below. If you haven't been online recently, AMD and Nvidia are in hot water over their recent GPU launches. Nvidia and AMD have launched the 4060 Ti and the RX 7600 respectively. And to be fair, the hate they've got on Twitter is it's quite bad if I'm honest. To be fair though, I think AMD is copying a bit too much hate for the RX 7600 because I don't think it's technically a bad GPU, and at least it outperforms its predecessor in every single game. So AMD is copying a bit too much hate now if I'm honest, but Nvidia is rightfully receiving a lot of criticism for their RTX 4060 Ti. I'm not saying all the hate is right, but a lot of the criticism which I've seen online, especially in video reviews, stuff like that, the 4060 Ti is an absolute lump of garbage. And AMD was in a bit of a shambles with the RX 6700 launch. I know that they've annoyed quite a few reviewers because they dropped the price at pretty much the last minute as soon as they saw the RTX 4060 Ti drop. So that is why quite a few people are annoyed with AMD. And I can kind of get that, but at the end of the day, the graphics card itself isn't actually too bad. So let's start off with the worst offending GPU, which is the RTX 4060 Ti. Let me be clear, this thing is an absolute lump of trash. It is absolutely terrible. Do not buy this thing. That's because it hardly performs better than its predecessor, the RTX 3060 Ti, and even in some games, it performs worse than the RTX 3060 Ti. Who would know that a new generation of GPU would perform worse in some games than the previous one? This is absolutely obscene. It's never been heard of before. And as Steve from Gamers Nexus said, the RTX 4060 Ti is an absolute waste of sand. And that's how badly the silicon in this thing has been wasted. And there's a few reasons why its performance is pretty lackluster. And I have to say the main one is the 128-bit memory bus. This is extremely small, and back in the past we'd only see this on 50 class cards. Now we've seen it on 60 class cards, which is absolutely insane to me. Nvidia are saying that they've got more level 2 cache now, but in terms of the real world and real performance, which is what gamers care about, the RTX 4060 Ti is not being helped that much by more level 2 cache and a smaller memory bus. And the thing that makes this worse is it's only got 8GB of video memory. In newer AAA games, which this thing is being marketed towards, it's not performing well. Pair it with that 128-bit memory bus and you're getting texture problems in games like Halo Infinite. You do get a few texture problems where them loading in. That's more so of a problem at 1440p, but even at 1080p you can run into some issues in newer AAA games as well. And a lot of developers have said that they're just fed up of working with 8GB frame buffer graphics cards, as it is really starting to hold them back now, which is not great because it's going to cause gaming to stagnate, and who wants that? So Nvidia, pay your graphics card with more video memory, especially if they're costing people $400. So because of this, the RTX 4060 Ti has not been received very well because it's just overpriced and it's not a good product. You're just better off buying a used 3060 Ti at this point because you're just getting the same performance. The 3060 Ti does still suffer with the 8GB of VRAM not being enough for most AAA games, but that did launch 2.5 years ago and it was a damn sight more powerful than its predecessor, the RTX 2060 Super. So I think the days of the RTX 4060 Ti are already numbered, and I don't know about you, but if I'm spending £400 on a graphics card, I don't want it to be kneecapped performance-wise as soon as I've bought it, because yeah, that's not a great investment, is it? With the RTX 4060 Ti out of the way, it's time to move to Team Red with the RX 7600. And I believe that this GPU did receive too much bad press. I don't think it's necessarily a bad GPU per se. Don't get me wrong, I believe its pricing could be slightly more competitive even after the day one price slash. But to be fair, as it stands right now currently at £260 I believe it costs here in the UK, it provides a much better value than the RTX 4060 Ti. Because at least this graphics card does outperform its predecessor by a pretty substantial margin. It's closer to a 6650 XT when it's directly replacing the RX 6600 non-XT. So this is a pretty reasonable jump, but it still does suffer from some problems. It's still got a 128-bit memory bus, and it's still got 8GB of GDDR6 memory, albeit it does have more memory bandwidth than the original RX 6600. And if you're buying this graphics card at this price point, you're probably going to be more playing games like Fortnite, esports games, with some AAA games mixed in there. This is why I think it should be slightly cheaper, around £230. I do believe that would provide a much better value proposition than what it's currently priced at. But then again, it's better than that whatever value the RTX 4060 Ti is at right now, so not too bad, I guess. So overall, I don't think the RX 7600 is that bad of a graphics card. It's just received the hate because AMD went back on the pricing on, well, before day one actually, and that's annoyed quite a few reviewers as they've had to totally redo their videos for the most part. Even Gamers Nexus had to do half of his video while he was in Taiwan for Computex. So that just shows you how much AMD have kind of messed with reviewers here. But to be fair, when it comes to AMD, I can't really blame them because they probably saw what happened with the RTX 4060 Ti and they probably went, right, we can't release it at this price, so we've got to drop the price ever so slightly. Here I'm just guessing what's going on at AMD HQ right now. They probably did this, but I can't confirm it. So overall, the 7600 is not a terrible card, and if it does drop quite a bit in price, which I believe it will over the next few months, I think it could be a very decent budget 1080p graphics card. I wouldn't just make a rant video without providing a solution, would I? And this is what I would do if you were shopping for a RTX 4060 Ti. By the way, if you haven't got this already, do not buy this graphics card. Here's what I'll do instead. For used offers, I would get something like an RX 6800. This graphics card does come bundled with 16GB of GDDR6 memory, and I believe it also has a 256-bit bus. So not only has the memory been doubled on this thing over the RTX 4060 Ti, the memory bus has also been doubled as well. So you get no issues with VRAM, and you'll be able to run games at high texture settings, because textures are the most important graphical feature in my opinion. They do tend to improve the experience quite a lot, because who likes muddy textures? Also, you'll be running into no weird memory bandwidth issues at 1440p, as this graphics card can definitely game at 1440p as well. And did I mention it's also 15 to 20% more powerful than the RTX 4060 Ti in rasterization performance as well. But if you're dead set on Nvidia, you could get something like the RTX 3080. No, it's not a Ti, it's just the RTX 3080 10GB. The VRAM might be cutting it close, and this is an issue which I haven't technically ran into yet, but it's an issue I'm concerned about. So if you're dead set on Nvidia, you could get an RTX 3080. It's got a 320-bit memory bus, so it's a very wide memory bus. And it's also got an extra 2GB of the much faster GDDR6X memory. For new cards, I'd recommend looking at something like the RX 6750 XT. This graphics card does come bundled with 12GB of GDDR6 memory, and it's running through a 256-bit bus as well. So it's not crippled memory-wise in any way, and the extra 4GB of GDDR6 memory is a massive welcome bonus in games, especially when you're playing at 1440p as well. And this one comes in at just under £400, brand new, and it's slightly more powerful than the 4060 Ti, I believe. No, hold on, I'll check that actually. 6750 XT. Let's have a look. What is Tech Power Up saying? Tech Power Up, right. So it'll probably be about as powerful as the RTX 4060 Ti in terms of rasterization, maybe about 5% more powerful depending on the game that you're playing, but The main thing is it comes with more VRAM, so it will allow you to play at 1440p and 1080p with maxed out textures with no issues. But the problem is with these, it's while stock lasts. These are older generation cards at this point, so I don't think they're really in production that much anymore. So just make sure if the stock's there, I'd recommend this brand new over anything Nvidia's got in this price point, because Nvidia at this price point is just not great at all. In terms of alternatives for the RX 6700, this was actually pretty hard to find a reasonable alternative to it. Looking on the used market, the only graphics card that I could find for around the same price was the 2080 Super. Yes, this graphics card is slightly more powerful than the 6700, but it uses a ton more power and it's 2 generations old at this point. I'd probably recommend the 7600 over the 2080 Super, but if you need CUDA acceleration, because I know Nvidia in certain applications like Adobe Premiere Pro is a lot better than AMD, I'd probably recommend the 2080 Super there. Ultimately though, thanks to the backlash of this launch, which I think most of it's unwarranted, as I've said a lot of times in this video, I think the price of the 7600 will come down. I do believe it will reach £230 here in the UK. Give it a couple of months and I reckon it'll be there pretty quickly, I believe. So yeah, if you're looking to get one of these, I'd say just wait out a bit. It's not like it's 2021 anymore, where GPUs are just flying off the shelves when they're brand new. Time is on your side here. So what's next for the mid-range GPU market? I know Nvidia are releasing another SKU of the RTX 4060 Ti, which will be 16GB. However, this will cost $100 more, and I believe that's just ridiculous because you're not even getting decent performance at that price, let alone all the VRAM issues. And I believe for around £289, they are going to be releasing a 4060, which will probably be just a 4050 with a different badge on it. But luckily, no one is buying the RTX 4060 Ti, and this is a good thing because it's going to drive them prices down, and we're going to get cheaper and more value-oriented graphics cards. I wouldn't buy the RTX 4060 Ti for anything above $250 personally. I don't think it's worth any more than that to me, but some people may be willing to spend more, and that's okay. And as I said, I do suspect that the RX 7600 will reach £230 sooner rather than later. So if you're looking for one of them, hold out for a couple of months and you should be able to score a pretty decent deal on one. So with this being said, I'm going to leave this video here. If you like this one, like it, stay subscribed for more tech content because I have an absolute ton on the way. I'm working on so many things right now. So if you want to see them, stay subscribed and give this video a like as well. And I'll catch you in the next one.